The impacts of rupee weakening. The sharp devaluation of Indian rupee is driven by capital outflows, high import cost, and a policy shift by the RBI. Structural issues such as rising domestic prices and real exchange appreciation further complicates the rupee of net exports. The Indian rupee recently registered a sharp devaluation with respect to the dollar after remaining stable for over 2 years or so. What explains such a phenomena? What are the implications? The article aims to address these issues by discussing India's exchange rate policy and highlighting a few structural constraints in the Indian economy in the recent period. The nominal exchange rate is the price of buying one unit of foreign currency in terms of domestic currency. The way in which the nominal exchange rate changes depends on both demand supply conditions of the foreign exchange market and exchange rate policy of the central bank. The real exchange rate is the relative price of foreign goods in terms of domestic price currency with respect to price of domestic goods. It describes how cheap or costly domestic goods are concerning the foreign goods. The demand and supply conditions of foreign exchange market depend on the flows of the current account and capital account. The demand of foreign currency would rise if some of the net current and capital account flows falls, whereas supply of foreign currency would rise if the sum increases. The net current account are largely influenced by net exports, whereas the net capital account flows are influenced by the net flows of foreign investment. The lower the net exports and greater the capital outflow, the greater would be demand for foreign currency and vice versa. Depending on how the central bank responds to demand and supply conditions in the foreign exchange market, there can be broadly three kinds of exchange rate policy frameworks: fixed exchange rate, floating exchange rate, and managed floating exchange rate regimes. In the fixed exchange rate regime, the central bank responds to the higher demand for foreign currency entirely by selling, decumulating foreign exchange reserves while keeping a nominal exchange rate fixed at a predetermined level. In the floating exchange rate regime, the central bank responds to higher demand of the foreign currency by entirely devaluing the foreign domestic currency, making foreign currency costlier in terms of domestic currency and vice versa, while keeping the levels of foreign exchange reserves unchanged. In the managed floating rate regime, the central bank responds to higher demand for foreign currency both by selling foreign currency as well as devaluing the domestic foreign currency. Barring a few episodes, India has largely pursued a managed float exchange rate regime in the last 3 decades. The last decade has been characterized by the Reserve Bank of India pursuing a particular variant of the managed float exchange rate regime, where its response under excess demand conditions in the foreign exchange market has been qualitatively different from excess supply conditions. Under excess demand conditions in the foreign exchange market, the RBI has simultaneously devalued the foreign domestic currency and decupulated its foreign exchange reserves. However, under excess supply conditions, the RBI accumulated foreign exchange reserves while largely resisting appreciation of the nominal exchange rate to avoid appreciation of the real exchange rate or the worsening of export competitiveness. By implication, while episodes of net capital outflow were associated with depreciation of nominal exchange rate, the episodes of net capital inflow did not involve appreciation of the exchange rate to the same extent. This asymmetry in the behavior of nominal exchange rate led to an overall devaluation of the rupee throughout the 2010s decade as reflected in figure 1. In the post-COVID period, particularly between the later half of 2022 and November 2024, the, the RBI momentarily shifted its policy stance to a regime that closely resembles the fixed exchange rate regime. This is reflected by a flat segment of the dollar exchange rate in figure 1 during the relevant period. Deterioration of the current account deficit and capital outflow during this period were met by selling foreign exchange reserves while holding the nominal exchange rate more or less at the same level. The sharp devaluation of the rupee in the last month or so hints towards RBI returning to its earlier regime of managed float exchange rate that it followed during the 2010s, responding to greater capital outflow and rise in imports and higher crude oil prices. The RBI allowed the rupee to depreciate with the objective of putting less strain on the foreign exchange reserves. Impacts of devaluation. Depreciation of nominal exchange rate can have at least two macroeconomic implications, positive and adverse. The first route involves real exchange rate channel, whereas second route involves price of domestic goods. Cheapening domestic goods opens up the possibility of increasing net exports. For example, if a nominal dollar exchange rate is 85, the dollar price of foreign goods is $100 and the rupee price of foreign domestic goods is 1000 rupees, then the price of foreign goods in terms of domestic currency would be 850 and the real exchange rate would be 0.85. First, a depreciation in the nominal exchange rate can positively influence net exports and output if two conditions hold simultaneously. The net exports respond positively to the real exchange rate, and the depreciation in nominal exchange rate is associated with depreciation in real exchange rate. A rise in domestic prices at a given nominal exchange rate would lead to an appreciation of the real exchange rate by making domestic goods costlier, whereas a depreciation of the nominal exchange rate at unchanged domestic prices would lead to a depreciation of the real exchange rate by making domestic goods cheaper with respect to foreign goods. Second, a depreciation in the nominal exchange rate can increase domestic prices by increasing the variable cost of firms and putting a greater squeeze on real income. In oligopolistic markets, firms typically set their prices by setting a markup over their variable cost. Since the variable cost of firms typically includes the cost of imported war materials, nominal exchange rate depreciation would increase the variable cost of firms by increasing their effective cost of imported raw materials. The consequent rise in variable cost leads to higher prices when the firms pass on the burden of higher raw material costs to the final consumers. The central constraint that emerged in the Indian economy since the latter half of 2010s, however, was that condition for the positive effect of nominal exchange rate depreciation ceased to hold. The period since mid 2010s and particularly 2019 has been characterized by growing divergence between the nominal and real exchange rate. Figure 2 shows this divergence by plotting the trend between the nominal effective exchange rate and real effective exchange rate. These indices reflect the weighted average exchange rate of India with respect to multiple trade partners. The way in which these indices are defined, any increase or positive change of these indicators implies appreciation, or any decrease or negative change implies depreciation. After moving in the same direction till the mid 2010s, they started moving in opposite direction with real exchange rate registering an appreciation despite a depreciation in the nominal exchange rate. Such a phenomenon distinguishes India from the bulk of the other countries. Figure 3 shows this by depicting exchange rate movements of 62 countries using data from Bank of International Settlements. So India is here, Switzerland, Poland, etc. are here. So most of the countries are in the right quadrant. India is in the left quadrant with real change and near change. Rear change is negative and near change is positive. The horizontal and vertical axis respectively measure the change in indices of near and rear, Between January 2019 and 2024, the vertical zero line marks no change in NEER, while horizontal zero line marks no change in REER. Depending on how both NEER and REER change during this period, Figure 3 can be divided into four box categories. Category 1 includes countries where both nominal and real exchange rate registered appreciation. Category 2 includes countries when the real exchange rate appreciated while the depreciation in the nominal exchange rate. Category 3 are those countries with registered depreciation in both nominal and real exchange rate. And category 4 countries are those which registers depreciation in the real exchange rate despite the appreciation in the nominal exchange rate. The figure shows that at least two important features of the global economy during this period. First, majority of countries has been located in categories 1 and 3, indicating that the nominal and real exchange rates have moved in the right same direction for most countries. Second, India parted company with most countries since 2019 as it is located in category 2. Such appreciation of real exchange rate despite depreciation of nominal exchange rate indicates that the latter has been associated with counteracting rise in domestic prices. One explanation for such a rise in domestic prices can be located in recent increase in the markup of non-financial firms as shown in figure 4. Such appreciation of real exchange rate despite depreciation of nominal exchange rate indicates that the latter has been associated with counteracting a rise in domestic prices. The markup can be estimated as the ratio between output price and the variable cost per unit of output as ratio between nominal value of sales and the total value variable cost. Figure 4 shows the trend in the markup for 1908 sample firms in the CMIE PROS database, which has provided information on their variable cost in all the years in sample period. The variable cost in this estimation includes expenses on raw materials, packaging, power and fuel compensation to employees, indirect taxes, distribution and outsourcing. After registering a decline till the mid 2010s, the markup reversed its trend and started rising. Since prices are formed by a markup over variable cost, any rise in markup would push up domestic prices at any given level of variable cost and nominal exchange rate. The policy question: while weakening of rupee puts pressure on the prices, delinking of real exchange rate from nominal exchange rate has posed additional constraint on the recovery of net exports and balance of payments adjustment mechanism. This leads to larger questions for the exchange rate policy. Should India return to its earlier strategy of 2010s, or does it require a new and explicit exchange rate policy framework? What should the exchange rate policy aim to achieve? And the response of the RBI in the post-COVID period has appeared somewhat arbitrary as it has frequently shuffled its policy stance without providing adequate explanation. The recent challenges bring forth the need to address these questions in a more systematic way. Singapore to help India's semiconductor industry. President Tharman Shanmugaratnam says Singapore and India are exploring opportunities for manufacturing semiconductor chips in the country. In the 60th year of diplomatic relationship, Singapore is exploring new initiatives such as manufacturing of semiconductors and building a semiconductor ecosystem in India and participate in creation of new generation of technological solutions, the city-state president Tharman Shanmugaratnam said on Thursday. We will never forget India was one of the first countries to recognize Singapore's independence in 1965. It's a natural partnership between small country Singapore and a very large country India. In a whole range of areas, our business relationships are thriving, Mr. Shan Mugaratnam said, highlighting that Singapore has been a largest investor in India for many years now. We are also exploring other initiatives in digital space. We are exploring possibility of a data corridor between Gift City and Singapore so that our financial institutions can exchange data on a safe and trusted basis, he said after the official welcome accorded at him at the forecourt of the Rashtrapati Bhavan. He mentioned that the two sides were working in areas such as renewable energy and spoke about India's high ambition for the eastern states such as Odisha and Assam. The visiting president spoke about natural advantages of eastern states such as availability of natural resources and desire among the people to develop in logistics, connectivity and petrochemicals. We are now on a trajectory with India with the upgrade of our relations to comprehensive strategic partnership which was announced during Prime Minister Modi's last visit to Singapore in September last year. We are working on cooperating with advanced manufacturing, semiconductors, ecosystem in India, the Singapore president said in remarks to the media. Later in the day, he and President Draupadi Murmu jointly launched the joint logo here to commemorate the 60th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between India and Singapore. President Shanmugaratnam visit is a part of series of exchanges that will take place during the year so as both sides plan to celebrate the 60th anniversary through visits and events. Docking technology allows ISRO to think of longer space flights. On December 30, 2024, the ISRO launched PSLV C-60 mission. Its primary payload was a pair of satellites for the Space Docking Experiment or SpaceX to demonstrate orbital rendezvous and docking. The ability to execute in orbit is an essential stepping stone to more complex missions. The launch was also hailed as ISRO ending the year on a high, but SpaceX reminded us that sophisticated spaceflight missions care little for arbitrary deadlines. The satellite successfully docked on January 16 after few abortive attempts. They were expected to dock on January 7, which ISRO postponed to January 9. The then brought them close without docking on January 12 in an apparent data taking effort. It next the January 9 attempt after the satellites were found to have drifted more than expected, prompting measures to arrest the displacement and reinitialize the experiment. Once docked, ISRO began tests to verify if the satellites could exchange electric power, then undock and separate, followed by testing their own payloads that would spread over 2 years. That would be spread over 2 years. The C-60 mission also launched the fourth stage of the rocket as an orbital platform. It carries 24 payloads from various ISRO centers and private enterprises testing various technologies. The Vikram Sarabhai Space Center compact research module for orbital plant studies was able to have a cowpea seed germinated in orbit, capturing the popular imagination. Docking also allows spacefaring components to be launched separately and assembled in space to form a larger module. This allows a space agency to plan interplanetary missions whose spacecraft are heavier than what the heaviest rockets can launch. Docking is thus a symbolic gateway to new opportunities, with the Chandrayaan 4 lunar sample return mission being a good example. In anticipation, ISRO launched loaded the SpaceX satellites with enough fuel for multiple tries and also continuously collect data. Its own nervousness became evident too after first two attempts. It backed down from its promise to live stream the successful one. Docking technology has become desirable thanks to the perceived inevitability of long duration spaceflight. The pressure to lower cost imposed by, say, crewed missions to Mars or space mining operations has rendered ideas such as in space satellite servicing and orbital resupply platforms, both of which require docking, more lucrative. ISRO plans to start launching the Bharatiya Antariksh Station BAS later this decade as it embarks on this new phase of operations with Narayanan as its new chairman. ISRO should also describe a coherent vision for the ex ante utility expected of BAS. Without this context, the larger pieces of Indian space program and their purpose relative to other countries' plans seem adrift. The Australian Open this year marks more than the start of a new season, coming as it does at the beginning of brand new tennis season. The Australian Open is never short of fresh and intriguing storylines. The 2025 edition, which started on Sunday, is no exception. Of interest will be Novak Djokovic's quest for record-breaking 25th major, Jannik Sinner's title defense amidst a doping cloud, and Carlos Alcaraz's search for a maiden trophy in Melbourne. Great anniversaries of peace initiatives, a role for India. In the minutes before the deadliest tsunami in India's memory tore through its southeastern shores on December 26, 2004, people living in those parts were just being themselves, laughing, crying, quarreling, making love, lamenting, or celebrating their destinies. Seconds before wildfires gutted a huge swath of Los Angeles' beautiful landscape earlier this month, people there were in different states of exhilaration, with the sheer loveliness of their surroundings, the blues of the sky, the reflection that is azure of the sea, shopping, discussing the future of their country under Trump and Musk. We could have never imagined is how those affected put it. The calamities were put down to caprice of nature which can not be predicted or prevented. But we can imagine, in fact, more than imagine, we can see with the clarity with which the high-end scientific team in Los Alamos saw the first detonation of a nuclear weapon conducted by United States under the instructions of US President Harry S. Truman at 5:29 on July 16, 1949 as part of Manhattan Project. The sight was piercingly sharp. General Thomas Farrell, who was a witness, said in his official report the lightning effects beggared description. It lighted every peak, crevasse, and ridge of nearby mountain range with a clarity and beauty that cannot be described but must be seen to be imagined. If Farrell saw the fury as beauty, the physicist Kenneth Bainbridge, who planned and executed the test, exclaimed, "We are all sons of..." Now, I leave the elided word to the reader's imagination. We are all sons of dash now. Perish or use common sense. This year, 2025, is the 80th year of that test and the world's first nuclear weapon test. It is also the 80th year of the first use of bomb that had been tested over the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki less than a month later, killing between 150,000 and 246,000 people, mostly civilians. Leading the director of the project, Robert Oppenheimer, to cite the Bhagavad Gita's stunning imagery of death by the light and heat of thousand suns. On the very day that the bomb fell on Nagasaki, Bertrand Russell began drafting the statement that said, "The prospect of human race is somber beyond all precedent. Mankind are faced with a clear-cut alternative: either we shall all perish, or we shall have to acquire some sort of degree of common sense. A new great deal of new political thinking will be necessary if utter disaster is to be averted." 10 years later, in 1955, Russell and Albert Einstein led nine other scientists to issue an appeal to the leaders of governments to avert nuclear disaster. Joseph Rotblat, the only scientist to have left the Manhattan Project on moral grounds, convened a press conference at which the manifesto was released. The manifesto called for a conference where scientists would assess the dangers posed to the survival of humanity by weapons of mass destruction. One particular phrase from the manifesto has been become lower: remember your humanity and forget the rest. This is the 70th year of Russell Einstein Manifesto, the platinum anniversary of that expression of faith and hope for humanity. But in the intervening years, humanity has been forgotten and the rest has been pursued relentlessly. Glimmers of hope have risen through breakthrough arms control agreement and partial test bans, which have brought the world's arsenal of nuclear weapons down, but the genie kept escaping from the vat of controls. Today, the danger of nuclear conflagration is more real than ever, much more real and immediate than the caprice of nature is the finger that can press a nuclear button annihilating all life on planet Earth. The fingertip is dangerously close to that little surface, and before we can say stop, we may be cinder, or worse, maybe become cinder. This is not fantasy, this is not science fiction. We are all doing exactly what we were when calamity struck us in 2004 and struck California earlier this year. We are in dangerous denial. The year 2025 is also platinum anniversary of another event in India that is scarcely remembered now but was sensationally important at the time. On January 17, 1955, the Indian National Congress met at plenary at Awadhi in what was the Madras state, with Jawaharlal Nehru and C. Rajagopalachari present, passed important resolutions, among which was one that anticipated the Russell-Einstein Manifesto. It said, "The ominous developments in respect of atomic and hydrogen bombs are menace not only to world peace but to civilization itself. The total prohibition of the manufacture and use of atomic and hydrogen as weapons of mass destruction, as well as conventional atomic weapons such as atomic artillery, is imperative if civilization is to be saved from destruction." The Awadhi resolution then called for the matter to be taken up by the Disarmament Commission of the United Nations so that public of all nations might become fully aware of the grave menace of war today, with Russia having revised its nuclear doctrine and officially declares armed control as a thing of the past, and NATO made and NATO provided missiles being sent deep into the Russian space. The stage is all but set for Moscow to implement what it has declared to be its option. The Israel Palestine theater wobbles on the nuclear tightrope. These state pairs apart and non state entities acquiring access to nuclear weapons of the subsidiary type that Avadi resolution mentioned is not just a possibility but a high probability. There are no Russells, Einsteins, and Rothblatts now among our science leaders to warn the world and India, now a nuclear weapon state in itself, of what can happen to us. Deterrence is now the historic shit glut of specialists who have made the negotiations for arm controls and test bans a self-perpetuating ritual. The world may well negotiate itself to upstart annihilation or a carefully designed Armageddon ignited by delusions of avenging grandeur. 9 countries are said to be nuclear weapon countries, India being one of them, and by broader reckoning, as of 2024, the world has some 12,000 nuclear warheads. The number is staggering and unbelievable to any sane mind, but let us note that is that it is lower than roughly 60,000 weapons that existed during the Cold War. There may well have scientific inputs that went into the Awadhi resolution, but propulsion came from the leadership of the day. More recently, Rajiv Gandhi's Action Plan for Nuclear Weapons Free and Non-Violent World Order of 1988 showed that India remembered humanity in the Russellian and Nehruvian way as of 37 years ago. Manishankar Ayer's book, A Maverick in Politics, vivifies that in initiative and cause of humanity as few books have in recent times. It is high time India did something for peace and beyond what it has to impress upon Moscow and Kiev the importance of negotiation. As the Awadhi resolution put it, the issue is not just about the need to halt belligerence but the need to save humanity. That something has to be at least a conference on preventing mass annihilation, leading to new action plan, which includes action by India as well. This year of great anniversaries of peace initiatives can, given a new initiative, save the world from involving Bainbridge's self-marking lament. An alliance of democracies with India at its core. The year 2024 was super election year around the world, and 2025 must be the year when world's democracies regroup and find new ways to support each other. Nowhere is this truer is the relationship between Europe and India, the partnership that far too long has been on strategies but small on deliveries. For nearly 17 years, European Union India relations were seen through a prism of on-off free trade agreement negotiations. As a free trader, I believe that benefits of the world's biggest democracy and its largest trading bloc coming together to buck protectionist headwinds would be an economic and geopolitical game changer. However, we cannot be naive to the hurdles ahead. If a big bang deal eludes in the short term, we should develop another track away from negotiators and bureaucrats, fixed firms at the highest political levels. It would focus on bigger picture geostrategic issues such as economic security, defense cooperation, and common ground for common agenda for space, emerging technology, and critical industry sectors such as pharmaceuticals. On the geopolitical level, Europe was undoubtedly frustrated with India's response to Russian invasion of Ukraine and continues close ties. The ties are historic. Conversely, India has broad rivalry with China despite cooperation through BRICS group and substantial trading partnership. As the growing economy, I can understand why India would not want to be sucked into power competition as the world divides into democratic and autocratic blocs. However, fundamentally, India is a democracy and its entanglement with Moscow and Beijing is unnatural. In the same vein, India's accusations of double standards from Europe are not without substance. We cannot demand that India severs all ties with Russia without also addressing our economic dependence on China. A restart in relations should therefore start with common assessment that Russia and China, with their no limits partnership, are both a threat to global democratic world, which includes India, Europe, and United States. What happens in the Atlantic affects the Indo-Pacific and vice versa. On the basis, we should focus on a series of practical measures to break down barriers to trade and investment piecemeal while strengthening our joint security, including economic security. This will include reducing dependencies on China in areas such as critical raw materials and developing new supply chains with Europe, seeing India as a trusted partner. In defense, India and US already enjoy strong defense cooperation, with India being America's major defense partner and a member of a Quad, sometimes referred to as Asia Pacific NATO. Europe should support the continued development of this security alliance to give India more security guarantees. European Union India defense discussions have increased but should accelerate to a high political level as Europe looks to bring much needed investment into our industries, which can also offer India better weapons than Russia. The European Union's new dedicated defense commissioner should visit India at the earliest opportunity and develop more collaboration in defense and in space, where both the European Union and India have ambitious plans. India and the European Union have in place a Trade and Technology Council to mirror a similar council with the Biden administration. Whether European Union, US, TTC survives President Donald Trump is unclear, but the European Union India Council has not reached its potential, especially in coordinating technology agenda. Here we can draw inspiration from India's ties with US, where the US India Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technologies ICET is promoting collaboration at the National Security Advisor level. The Australian Strategic Policy Institute illustrates the scale of this challenge. It tracks 64 emerging technologies, and 57 of them China is winning the global race. The US is not hot on its heels. However, India is also emerging as a key center of the global research innovation, with many of European countries also still running. Individually, we are doing okay in existential race, but by combining forces, the free world can jump ahead to lead the world in all emerging technologies from quantum computing to advanced biotech. We must not hand victory to China. Europe and India should focus on far more practical relationship built on tangible connections, including stronger people-to-people ties. For Europe, the benefits are obvious. India will become the world's third largest economy in the next decade, at a time when European global GDP share continues to fall, but there is a wider prize forming an alliance of the democracies that has India at its core. If Europe wants to anchor India in that alliance, we need to change our approach to the subcontinent. This does not mean brushing differences or difficulties under the table. India has many challenges to its democracy, but so does Europe. We should seek to address them together. Europe, India, and United States are individually powerful, but together we are unstoppable against united autocrats. Has T20 cricket de-skilled Indian batting? India's 1-3 loss in the Border Gavaskar Trophy marks the end of its decade-long dominance in the series against Australia. This was not an exception. India's performance in Test cricket has been dismal for a while now. Over the last 4 months, the team has lost 6 out of 8 tests, including a shocking 0-3 defeat against New Zealand at home. The social media team is often the first responder of the desk, tracking news, spotting trends, and delivering updates. The role of social media editor is in many ways that of multitasking editor, from being the voice of the organization and ensuring that its tones and views are accurately represented to selecting most impactful visuals and battling the relentless tide of fake news. This is a job that demands versatility. It is also never too late to appreciate the dedicated followers of Hindu digital community. Their engagement and trust inspires us to keep growing bigger. ISRO docks two satellites puts India in elite league. SpaceX mission gained control as of them as a single object. ISRO to follow up maneuver with undocking and power transfers. India joins the ranks of US, Russia, and China with this feat. The ISRO successfully executed a satellite docking experiment in the early hours of Thursday, making India the fourth country after the US, Russia, and China to achieve this historic feat. The two satellites, SDX Chaser 1 Chaser and SDX 2 Target, launched by PSLV C-60 on December 13, successfully docked and as officials from the Mission Operations Complex at ISRO Telemetry, Tracking and Command Network oversaw the complex procedure. Docking successful. Success spacecraft docking successfully completed. A historic moment. Let's walk through the SpaceX docking process. Maneuver from 15-meter to 3-meter hold point completed. Docking initiated with precision, leading to successful spacecraft capture. Retraction completed smoothly, followed by rigidization for stability. Docking successfully completed. India became the fourth country to achieve successful space docking. Congratulations to the entire team. Congratulations to India, ISRO said on X. Post-docking, the agency took control of the two satellites as a single object. Undocking and power transfer checks to follow in coming days. The SpaceX mission is an important project designed to develop and demonstrate the technology needed for spacecraft maneuvers. The demonstration of this technology is vital for futuristic missions such as sending an Indian astronaut to the moon. and building and operating an Indian space station. Saif Ali Khan stable after intruder stabs him at home. Punjab farmers to resume march on Delhi on January 21. Expired salines case, 12 doctors suspended in West Bengal. Hamas backtracked on truce deal. Israel. Israel carried out new airstrikes on Gaza on Thursday and accused Hamas of backtracking on parts of fragile ceasefire and hostage release deal ahead of an expected vote by its cabinet. The truce announced by mediators Qatar and US on Wednesday would take effect on Sunday and involve the exchange of Israeli hostages for Palestinian prisoners, after which the term of permanent end to war would be finalized. But the office of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Thursday that Hamas has reneged on parts of the arrangement reached in an effort to exhaust last minute concessions. It also said that Israeli cabinet, which has yet to approve the agreement, will not convene until the mediators notify Israel that Hamas has accepted all elements of the agreement. Hamas political bureau members Sami Abu Zuhri said that there was no basis for Israel's accusations. Hindenburg Research winds up operations. US-based short seller Hindenburg Research will be disbanded, its founder Nathan Anderson had said, adding that the firm has completed the project it was handling. The plan has been to wind up after we finish the pipeline of ideas we were working on, Mr. Anderson said on Wednesday. The announcement comes just days before Donald Trump's inauguration as the new president of the United States. Hindenburg in January 23 made waves when it published a report accusing Adani Group of pulling the largest con in corporate history, wiping out over $150 billion in value of a group share at their lowest point. The Adani Group had vehemently denied all the allegations, including that of being engaged in a brazen stock manipulation and accounting fraud scheme was over a course of decades and improper use of offshore tax havens to shore up group share prices. Tamil Nadu's drone Didi spray fields in a jiffy. The state's first batch of women trained under Central Scheme has been deployed to help farmers spray fertilizers and pesticides, water fields in minutes. Drones' heavy weight is a challenge. Nandini Sugumar, a postgraduate in mathematics, has always had a fascination for drones, having only seen the gadget wearing overhead at weddings. She now holds the controls as a drone pilot trained to assist Kala-Kurichi farmers. The fortnight before Pongal, residents at Deva Pandalam, a nondescript village at Shankarpuram, watched in awe Miss Sukumar's drone hovered above a sugarcane field, spraying fertilizer from its payload. The typical sortie covered the entire sugarcane field in just 7 minutes before returning to ground amid loud cheers from the villagers. She underwent 5-day hand-on training workshop on the operation and maintenance of drones held at Garud Aerospace Private Limited in Chennai. After completing the remote pilot training classes, she was given drone worth 7 lakh free, equipped with 2 tanks and battery set. Having graduated as skilled drone pilot, Ms. Sugumar is excited to embrace the technology to meet wide range of farmers' requirements to spray fertilizers, pesticides and water the fields. Parties asked to disclose label AI content used in poll campaigns. Ahead of the Delhi Assembly poll, Election Commission on Thursday issued a fresh advisory to political parties asking them to ensure responsible and transparent use of artificial intelligence generated content in their campaigns. Move comes day after FIR was launched against Aam Aadmi Party for allegedly posting AI generated photos and videos of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Union Minister Amit Shah on the party's official handle X handle. Just before Lok Sabha election last year, the electoral body has issued guidelines to curb potential use of deepfakes and AI-generated distorted current content by political parties and their representatives to disturb the level playing field. Prime Minister approves constitution of the 8th Pay Commission days ahead of the Delhi Assembly election. The union government approved establishment of the 8th Pay Commission on Thursday, accepting a demand of the central trade unions and employees organizations. The commissions Outcome will benefit about 50 lakh union government employees and 65 lakh pensioners. Congress promises 500 LPG cylinder ration kits, 300 units of free power to Delhi residents. Punjab farmers to resume march to Delhi on January 21. The announcement comes after 111 farmers sat on indefinite hunger strike in solidarity with Taliban, whose fast into death entered 52nd day. SKM calls for Kishan Mahapanchayats in all states. For slum dwellers in Rangpuri Pahadi, water still a pipe dream. Low temperature thermal desalination plant at Chetlat. Nandghar at Kalpani, a state-of-the-art Anganwadi with child-friendly infrastructure. 12 doctors suspended in West Bengal after the use of expired IV fluids. I4 fluid kills 2. Government announced compensation of 5 lakh job for deceased women's skin. Newborn of critically ill women dies. CM should take responsibility for incident as she holds the health portfolio. Assam government orders judicial probe into the coal mining mishap. SGPC writes to man seeks ban on emergency in Punjab. Six die in Jallikattu and other bull-related sports in Tamil Nadu. 6 persons were killed in Jallikattu and other bull-related sports such as Erudhattam and Manju Virattu in Tamil Nadu on Thursday. 3 spectators, including 2 elderly citizens, were killed in Jallikattu organized at Alan Ganalur in Madurai district, Rajchandar Thirumalai in Karur district, etc. Survivors opting out of township can't demand more money. Odisha to overhaul management of multi-purpose shelters after Cyclone Dana exposes deficiencies. The Odisha government has decided to overhaul the management of multi-purpose shelters after they couldn't be put to optimum use in Cyclone Dana in October 24, owing to issues such as non-functional toilets and lack of power supply. The government has constructed multi-purpose cyclone and flood shelters after the 1999 super cyclone led to the thousands of lives. The Revenue and Disaster Management Department has now resolved to hand over a task of improving the quality of management and maintenance of existing shelters and monitoring those under construction in rural and urban areas of Panchayati Raj. Funds from the State Disaster Risk Management Fund will also be provided for augmenting budgetary provisions wherever permissible and possible. The Revenue and Disaster Management Department will also provide funds to Panchayati Raj institutions and urban local bodies for securing electricity connections and shelters and bearing energy changes. According to the resolution, the secretaries of the Cyclone Shelter Management and Maintenance Committee at the Flood Shelter Management and Maintenance Committee will be in charge of the upkeep of the shelters. Odisha Forums urges parliamentary panel to bat for caste census. Inclusion of such an initiative in the national census will help gather accurate socio-economic data. Union Cabinet clears third launchpad at Sriharikota. Planned with 3,900 crores outlay and 4-year timeline, the third launchpad will serve as a standby for first two launchpads and support newer launch vehicles developed by ISRO. The maybe escape from Benghazi. Indian workers, most of them youth, from Uttar Pradesh say they are being held in prison like conditions in Benghazi, Libya, lured there by fake recruitment agents. Their family points to cycles of debt and poverty at home and the hope of economic mobility abroad as reasons for stepping into the unknown. UP, a state of roughly 240 million with per capita income of 70,000 rupees measured in terms of per capita national state domestic product in 2021 according to Government of India's reply in Rajya Sabha is three times lower than states like Maharashtra with 2,15,000 in the same period. While the latest PLFS reported compiled by Ministry of States and Program Implementation estimates UP employment at 2.4 in 22-23, critics have questioned its methodology. They say it does not accurately capture the state of unemployment in the country. The grim picture of unemployment in the state can be caused by the fact that more than 43 lakh youths appeared for 60,000 constable posts in police examination in 2024. The state has witnessed a registered rise in unregistered recruitment agencies, many of them in the Gorakhpur region, attracting overseas job work seekers through manipulative and often fake advertisements. People from low income families fall in the trap of such agencies and get cheated. Khan says he has written multiple letters to the UP government to including Deputy Inspector General Gorakhpur in the past couple of months seeking actions against such fake recruitment agencies. Phoenix out of the ashes as Avatar Krishna's 27 down finds a new life in festival circuits. His nephews Vinod Kaul pieces together the journey of the filmmaker. 27 down. Bollywood's Kaho Na Pyar Hai, Bollywood's global leap 25 years later. 25 years ago, a giddy Bollywood musical, Kaho Na Pyar Hai, reflected India's unique coordinates in globalized world, combining romance, international settings, and star-making debut. It became a cultural phenomena that resonated with audiences at home and abroad. तो हंस क्योंकि दुनिया Yako hai Hasana, smile so that you can make the world smile. Ritik sings in film, it became the motto of the times. The language of globalization is threatened throughout Kahona Pyar Hai. Rohit's boredom wall has a poster of the Backstreet Boys. Though he dresses casually, he wears a shirt and tie to work, the dress code of IT generation. There are product placements for Lexus, Mercedes, Ferrari, Yokohama Tires, and Coca Cola. The multiracial tropical themed nightclub Raj dances is called Club Indiana. He reads Cosmopolitan magazine on a flight a year before Peter Jackson's Lord of Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. The film boosted tourism and migration interest in New Zealand, highlighting attractions like Lake Wakatipu and remarkable ski resort outside Queenstown. 12 Maoists killed by security personnel in Chhattisgarh in an biggest anti-Maoist operation in Chhattisgarh since the beginning of the year. At least a dozen Maoists were gunned down by security forces in Chhattisgarh's Bijapur on Thursday. Actor attack opposition pins down Mahayuti. Centre announces constitution of 8th Pay Commission. Justice K. Vinod Chandran swans in as Supreme Court judge. Top court close to full strength. Justice Chandran was formerly Chief Justice of the Patna High Court. His appointment has raised the judicial strength to 33, one short of the full sanctioned strength. Closure of Hindenburg is not a clean sheet for Adani Group, Chair Ramesh. Pannum inquiry report is a positive first step but not the end, says Eric Garcetti. The Modi government's announcement of the results of its high-level inquiry into the Pannum case was a positive first step, but not the end of US's exceptions of action in the alleged assassination plot. In the first official reaction to the government statement, it has identified an individual believed to be a former RAW official as responsible to the conspiracy to assassinate Khalistani activist Pannu. Mr. Garcetti welcomed the statement and said it must now lead to full prosecution. It wasn't just about identifying them, it will be about a prosecution, which they alluded to. As part of its Jai Bapu Jai Bhim Jai Samvidhan campaign, Congress will be holding rallies on 21 at Belgaum and on 27 at Dr. Ambedkar Nagar, Madhya Pradesh. Manmohan Memorial still in early stages. Indonesian President to be chief guest on Republic Day. Prabowo will be accompanied by a massive military contingent that will march down Kartavya Path with the Indian military. The two countries are also close to concluding a deal on BrahMos. Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto will be chief guest at the Republic Day parade this year, with the Indonesian army bringing the largest foreign contingent so far to march down the Kartavya Path alongside India's military. The visit on January 25-26 announced by New Delhi and Jakarta simultaneously will make Prabowo the fourth Indonesian president to be invited as a chief guest on Republic Day. According to sources, the two countries are also close to concluding a $450 million deal from the BrahMos supersonic cruise missile systems, which will make Indonesia the second export customer of the Indo-Russian system. India and Indonesia share warm and friendly ties spanning over millennia. As comprehensive strategic partner, Indonesia is an important pillar in India's Act East policy and our vision of Indo-Pacific. External ministers in a statement announced the visit. President Prabowo and Prime Minister Narendra Modi will witness the exchange of a number of memoranda of understanding between the governments of two countries in various sectors, including health, culture, education, maritime safety, and safety, traditional medicine, which aim to strengthen cooperation between the two countries. The visit of Indonesian President on India to India confirms the strengthening and expansion of strategic cooperation between Indonesia and India, especially in the economic, defense, and maritime sectors. Defense Ministry signs 2,960 crore contract with BDL for its medium-range surface-to-air missiles (MRSAM) for the Indian Navy. MRSAM system is a standard fit aboard multiple Indian naval ships and is planned to be fitted on the majority of future platforms planned for acquisition. The contract marks a critical milestone in the ongoing efforts to bolster India's defense capabilities and indigenize military technology. VK Singh sworn in as Governor of Mizoram. The former Army Chief VK Singh sworn in as 25th Governor of Mizoram in the northeastern state capital Aizawl on Thursday. He replaced Hari Babu Khambanpati, who took over as Odisha's counterpart. Chief Justice of the Guwahati High Court Vijay Bishnoi administered the oath to office of General Singh, retired at the Raj Bhavan in the presence of Chief Minister Laldu Huma, former Chief Minister Zoram Thanga, and Lal Than Havla. His appointment as the governor is considered strategic as Mizoram borders Bangladesh and Myanmar, two countries in turmoil. Scale of corruption not only limited to bigger newsworthy scams, says CGI Sanjeev Khanna. Dalai Lama Charitable Trust gets FCRA nod. Chief Justice of India Sanjeev Khanna said on Thursday that scale of corruption was not limited to bigger newsworthy scams but also hidden in plain sight at everyday life of India's socially and economic disadvantaged people. When examination papers were leaked, it shattered dreams and aspirations of countless students, affecting the right to education and ability of aspirants to secure jobs. Each instance of corruption diminished public trust. He said corruption could lead to unfair determination of government contracts, with these being awarded in favor of friends, related businesses, associates, or the well connected elite. This kind of corruption is referred to as illegal distribution of state largesse, which distinguishes itself in sophisticated legal frameworks. Congress moves Supreme Court to defend Places of Worship Act says it ensures religious freedom. The Congress, through General Secretary K.C. Venugopal, moved the Supreme Court on Thursday to intervene in pending challenge to Places of Worship Act, quoting that secularism was developed in India as part of nationalism and freedom national movement. Congress said that the act reflected the mandate of Indian populace. The central law preserves the character of religious places as they existed on August 15, 1947, when India attained independence. The 139-year-old political party, which leads the opposition in parliament, said it was the chief architect of the act when the law was passed in 10th Lok Sabha. At the time of the passing of Places of Worship Act, it was the applicant Congress along with Janata Dal Party that were in majority in the legislature for the 10th Lok Sabha. In fact, the act was envisaged prior to the year 1991 and was made a part of Congress's manifesto. The Places of Worship Act is essential to safeguard secularism in India and the present challenge appears to be motivated and malicious attempt to undermine established principles of secularism. The party referred to Supreme Court's own words in the judgment that secularism in India developed as a part of nationalism and freedom movement which assured protection to minority and neutrality of the state in regard of all religions. NEET UG not to be held in online mode now, Ministry. The Union Ministry has decided not to conduct the NEET for undergraduate medical programs in online mode for now. In an announcement, the NTA said NEET UG will continue to be conducted in pen paper mode. There were proposals to hold NEET UG as a computer based test. NTA said in a release that NMC has decided to conduct in pen paper mode uh, and single day and shift. The NTA conducts a test for the NMC. Last year, more than 24 lakh candidates appeared for this test. Reliance Industries Limited Q3 net rises 7.3% to 18,000 crores. RBI announces steps to boost cross-border transactions in rupee. Liberalized norms. RBI announced liberalized norms to encourage use of Indian rupee and local currencies to settle cross-border transactions. The decision was when currency is sliding, touching an all-time low of 86.7. RBI has signed a memorandum of understanding with central banks of UAE, Indonesia, Maldives to encourage cross-border transactions in local currencies, including Indian rupee. To encourage greater use of Indian rupee for transactions, in July 22, an additional arrangement in the form of special rupee Vostro accounts were introduced. Several foreign banks have opened special rupee Vostro accounts banks with banks in India. Overseas branches of authorized dealer banks will be able to open INR accounts for person residents outside India for settlement of all permissible current account and capital account transactions with a person resident in India. Further, persons resident outside India will be able to settle bona fide transactions with other and non-resident using balances in their repatriable INR accounts such as special non-resident rupee account and SRVA. NCLAT admits Meta WAP pleas on CCI's 213 crore fine for abuse of market dominance. RBI is assessing Tata Sons' plea for deregistration as NBFCs. Sun to buy Canadian clinical stage biopharm, and type China's export curbs to dent electronics order solar EVs in India. Axis Bank Quarter 3 net rises 4% to 6,300 crore, NII is up 9%. Infosys Quarter 3 net increases 11%. Adani shares rise as Hindenburg disbands. Venezuela's embassy in Oslo vandalized, investigation opened. Beijing condemns Marcos Rubio's unwarranted attacks on China. China dangerous adversary to fellow senators during his confirmation hearing. World Bank plans 20 billion payout for Pakistan over a coming decade to support private sector growth and climate resilience, according to Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif.